Namaste everyone, welcome to India in Real Life. Yesterday I came across this article written by Mr. Sujit Bala, who has been a director of IMF India, if I'm not wrong. This is a fantastic article. I would recommend you read this article thoroughly. There are some contradictions, but nonetheless, a fantastic article. Um, so, after reading this article, I felt there is a need to explain this a bit more and try to explain it to myself, right? So I'm not going to go into the article, but I'm going to take certain inspirations from the article and make my case. So the framing of the article, BJP is winning the elections but losing the economy. So this kinds of brings in a paradox where it simply puts uh, that or states that BJP is winning elections. There is no doubt about it. But at the same time, these wins are not translating into economic headwinds, meaning they are winning elections without a doubt, but at the same time they are also losing the economy. For example, imagine a country that is being ruled by a political party, and that political party has or continues to see unstoppable success at the ballot box, meaning they are winning elections one after the other. Yes, they have setbacks here and there, but nonetheless, when you compare the overall picture, there is no other way to say it, but they are winning most of the places where they contest. For example, the recently held West Bengal election, the highly contested one, where the BJP won with a huge majority. So, when you look at these parameters of winning elections, sweeping majorities in states where they are contesting elections, uh, it clearly states that BJP has a highly centralized leadership. I won't go to the extent that it is highly centralized, but given the elections are fought on the personas of an individual or a group of individuals, I think it is safe to assume that it has certain elements of centralized leadership, but not to the extent of some centralized leadership elements in other parties. But overall, we have to agree that BJP is winning elections everywhere. So, this is one aspect. The second aspect, the underlying aspect, is yes, you have a stable government, you have a consistent government that has majority, that isn't worried about its safety, meaning we have seen coalition governments where they were fighting every day just to survive so that they can at least serve their term. But in the case of BJP, they don't have that sword hanging over their neck. They have abundant majority and they have the numbers to back any policy decisions that they can take. We have seen such actions in the past also. When you have this stability, the question that comes is, in this article they are framing that, or Mr. Bala is framing that, you have stability on one hand, but why are they losing the economic aspect of it? His framing is that when you have a stable government, you have a majority, super majority, if one can say it, then you should use that majority, or rather this political stability should automatically drive the economic growth. But here we are seeing a reverse trend happening. On one hand you have the political majority, but at the same time the economic growth is not happening at the pace that it should happen with the current majority, political majority or political stability. So why is that? So his questioning is that if a country has a winning political party with majority, at the same time it is also slowly losing its long term economic momentum. See, this is the paradox that he is posing in this question. See, there is no doubt that Indian economy is one of the fastest growing economies in the world. We do from time to time celebrate that India is the fastest growing major power, We attribute it to our digital economy. We attribute it to our giant youth population, and we also attribute it to our new infrastructure that is being built at breakthrough speed. But beneath these important developments, there are certain structural contradictions that are coming out. There are certain voices that are being uh, let out by various stakeholders in Indian economy about something called long-term investor confidence or long-term investment as whole. Not only that, what is our manufacturing competitiveness when compared to other countries? Whether the model that we have adopted or the model that the current Indian economy is growing, whether it is sustainable or not, right? I think in this video, I am going to explore all these aspects in a semi detailed way and try to give you an idea about what are the challenges that we are facing, what can be possible steps that the government take to address these issues, and how it would actually better the economy of the country. Right. So to understand this debate, we first have to look at what is going on right now. See, to be real with you, there are a lot of things that are going right for us in India, right? We continue to post some fantastic economic numbers, right? We are the world's largest or one of the world's largest and fastest growing economies. We outperformed any other country during the pandemic or subsequent West Asian crisis. When they were facing inflation, we were able to control our inflation. When they raised their fuel prices, we were able to rein in our fuel prices. I'm talking about the past, right? Now we have raised our fuel prices, but compared to other countries, we were able to sustain those low prices for a long period of time, given the current Iran war or the Russian or Ukraine war or any other uh, global issues that are taking place right now. So the other thing is, go to any major city or tier 2 city or tier 3 city, you'll see expenditure on public infrastructure. The government is actually spending money to improve infrastructure at various levels of governance, right? Not only that, as I said, we our rate of adoption of digital economy in terms of UPI, cashless transactions, digital payment ecosystem. Uh, I don't think any major country, most advanced countries, will have that kind of digital infrastructure that we possess right now. I think UPI is the envy of the world. That is my personal opinion, where millions of transactions are happening instantly on a everyday basis, from high-end corporate offices to small roadside vendors that you see. For even 1 rupee also we are using UPI, where earlier you had to shell out a rupee coin. Now, yes, these are the parameters that the government does frequently highlight to show that India's climb in the global ranks, how we have jumped from lower numbers of growing economies to the top five. We are in fifth place or fourth place, depending on whom you ask. How tech companies are investing in India, how tech companies are shifting their bases, service industries particularly, are setting massive hubs in India, and how foreign leaders, foreign countries are trying to woo India with FTAs. We have recently a spat of FTAs that have been signed with various countries, Western countries. And this is partly due to the unreliability, unpredictability that China has showcased in the last few years. The global the globe looks at India as a safer, better alternative to China. When everything is going for us, are we ready to accept the challenge? Are we ready to receive that kind of attention? Is the question, right? As I said, we are going in a positive direction. Our economic growth is good. Our GDP rates are could be better, but compared to other countries, they are good. But what concerns most of them is you have growth on one hand, but on the other hand, it is not translating fast enough into broad based prosperity where everybody rises up with the economy, right? If you want to measure economic transformation, GDP or per capita alone will not help. You also have to look how common citizens earning has been, whether it is rising or going down. I think that is one important parameter, right? From 2014 onwards, the article also alludes to this. From 2014 onwards, when you compare it with US numbers, it can be said that some people might agree that we are actually trending upwards. Some people will say we are trending downwards compared to other economies. I don't want to take the names, but compared to other surrounding countries, they say that we are doing far worse than them. Again, I'm not an expert in this. I hope you do your own research of it. My opinion is yes, when you look at those numbers purely, it looks like they are moving ahead compared to us, but I think there are nuances, there are certain in-depth details that you have to consider before saying that kind of in a one-sided way, right? So as I said, the economy is booming, but on average household incomes have remained stagnant, or they have not increased in parallel with the rise of our economy. So that is the biggest gap, right? And one more thing that I wanted to point out is the biggest headache that currently stares in front of India is unemployment and underemployment, particularly among educated youth. We have millions of young people that are graduating from colleges every year with high aspirations, but the reality seems to be that our economy is not able to generate enough high quality, high productive formal jobs to absorb these young graduates. No doubt the economic growth is happening, but the ability to accommodate all these people, or uh, the ability to create opportunities to all these people, is not happening at the pace that we need it to happen in, right? So that is one thing. So that is the major issue. You have an unemployment and an underemployment issue, and the solution to this seems to be that in order to actually make prosperous changes to the common population, India has to attract long term investments. It seems to be that we are not attracting those long term investments that would actually make changes, that would actually help improve our economy, and actually uh, ensure that prosperity reaches the common people. So for example, again alluding to the article, if you study any major economy in modern history, whether it may be China, South Korea, recently Vietnam, uh, there is a commonality here, that is sustained long term investment. So investment is the lifeline for any growth. It is actually what transforms a country from a consumer market into a global production base, right? It is through these investments that you build physical factories, that you use that money that is being invested to fund R&D. Recently the government also kind of coerced private entities to set up R&D funds, right? Again, this will create a steady but continuous supply of high paying jobs that employ millions of people and will aid these people coming out of their economic class. No doubt we attract a lot of foreign capital. Our data shows that our FDIs have reached higher heights over the last several years, where global companies are very much eager to start their bases in India to cater to the market of our 1.4, 1.5 billion people. But from an analytical point of view, there is a little bit of a critical difference between cash inflows and deep structural investments or investor confidence. So, right now, given the volatility of the world, companies are no longer just looking at the size of the market, but they are also evaluating legal stability, tax predictability, and how easy it is for them, or how easy it is for disputes to be resolved, along with an overall umbrella of policy consistency. Right? India has had that problem. Retro tax was one of the biggest shooting your foot yourself moment. I'm talking about that kind of policy inconsistencies. But overall, the umbrella should be that they have a stable government, they have a stable policy, meaning policy consistency. Right? It seems that this is where the major friction begins. While India is highly attractive on paper, companies often find the ground reality to be far more complex than what it is portrayed as. Right? We have seen sudden policy shifts, as I said, unexpected tax compliance demands, and let's not even go into the red tape that is our babus. These things will impact the mind of an investor like that. The moment he sees these things coming his way, he's going to make a U-turn and move out of with his funds. Right? That is where we have to be very quick to change our policies. We have to be very quick to bring in reforms that would make ease of doing business very competitive compared to other countries. Right? So the one thing that I wanted to point out from this article is the concept of bilateral investment treaty. So this article has a little bit of dichotomy there. I kind of don't agree with the so coming to the bilateral investment treaties, I think there is a little bit of misrepresentation there. I don't think it is intentional, but nonetheless it has happened. So in 2015 there has been a shift of policy in India as our market grew. Subsequent as a byproduct of it, confidence in our economy also grew, and we have started attracting large global companies, right? Because of the sheer size of market, sheer size of opportunities, these companies were accept these companies were okay with the red tape that we have put in place. They said, look at the size of the market, it is worth going through the hoops that the policy has here. So it was kind of, the market was outweighing the red tapeism, so they were okay with it. But as the years passed on, I think companies are now more wary of the red tapeism. They are not as it kind of shifted, right? It earlier, the market, the sheer size of market used to drive investments. Now companies are like, yes, yeah, market size is important, but is also important that it should be easy to conduct business here, right? So one of the things that the article talks about is, for instance, how we have been increasing our, or we have been leaning more towards protectionistic measures, right? One thing that he points out is the concept of quality control orders, where which would regulate certain standards that are placed on imports. They have sharply increased from 14 in 2017 to over 750 by 2024. These measures were put in place, were brought in place to protect the domestic industry. It certainly did give certain boost temporarily, but in the long term, I think it kind of had a negative impact overall, because it brought in some unpredictable conditions in the environment, where when a company is trying to invest, they want things to run smoothly. But when this unpredictable and this unstable environment is created, they're a little bit of wary of how to they conduct business. So these things accumulated into a situation where long-term investors or investments were becoming hard to come. Rather, long-term investors were little hesitant to choose India as their destination. Right? Let me come back to the bilateral investment treaty. The article frames that bilateral investment treaty is a compulsory thing, but in reality, it is not. Uh, to understand exactly how this policy plays out, India's bilateral investment treaty framework, or known as BIT, these treaties are essentially formal agreements between two nations that are kind of designed to protect foreign investors from unfair treatment by the governments. Right? BITs are often misunderstood. These are not used to handle normal business disputes between a foreign company and an Indian private partner. So, for example, if two private companies have a disagreement over a contract, they solve it through standard commercial arbitration or domestic contract law. That is the standard practice. So, what a bit does is it is kind of a shield under international law that protects a foreign company from sovereign overreach. For example, governments can not suddenly wake up one day and say that no, I don't like how you are conducting business, so I'm going to seize or forfeit all your assets. BIT protects that kind of irrational steps or decisions by government. The example, retroactive tax, right? So these are done to protect the companies from, there is no other word for it, crazy decisions by the government. So when in 2015, when we revised our approach to BIT, we released a new thing called Model BIT, Model Bilateral Investment Treaty. It is not a mandatory thing. What I intend to say is BITs are not mandatory. They're simply a blueprint or a policy that isn't binding on law or in law. It is not a binding law. It is a just a blueprint or something that we are saying to the world, yes, these are the policies or these are the rules that we have set for ourselves and we are going to follow them. Right? It's just an outline to the strict terms and conditions that India wants to negotiate when it sits down with treaty partners. It is not the end all of anything. So that is where I wanted to contradict. So when you talk about the 2015 model BIT, so as I was saying, one of the contentious things that this article points out is the idea of exhaustion of local remedies, right? So under this blueprint, if a foreign investor kinds of believes that whatever the government of India is doing or has treated them unfairly, the idea is that they cannot directly go to international tribunal and file a suit against the state or sue the state in simple terms. So the model treaty mandates that the investor must first fight their case inside Indian court system or administrative tribunals for at least a period of 5 years. Only after trying and failing to get a resolution locally for 5 years, then they are legally permitted to take out this dispute to international forums. Now, the idea that investors have to use local courts to settle their disputes is nothing illegal about. It is actually legal. It is a recognized principle in international law. Every investor, wherever they invest their money, are aware of this, and they are also aware of how overburdened our local court systems are. compared to other legal systems, and how long commercial disputes takes place to find a solution or a resolution. They understand the timelines. It will take some long time. These cases can go on for years on end. So by telling companies that they have to wait 5 years in a slow legal system before getting any international arbitration involved, it is kind of as I said, it is a model bit. It was kind of again, they kind of were setting boundaries. See, these are our parameters, and if you want to negotiate, you have to negotiate within these parameters. Again, this is not a treaty. This is not automatically applied. It is just the baseline from where negotiations start. See, this is our stand. We can negotiate. If you are serious, come, we'll sit and we'll negotiate. So, whatever the investor friendly treaties that India kind of has or has terminated in the past to avoid international suits, these kind of policy back and forth has kind of dented our confidence or dented confidence of international long-term investors in the world. I know I'm repeating myself, but you understand the point, right? Maybe if we had a bit of policy consistency, maybe if we had brought in reforms much faster than what we are bringing them in, maybe we could have attracted much greater investments in the last few years, especially after the uncertainty and the supply chain disruptions initiated by the China or by the Chinese. Right. So where are we? What, again, I know I'm going everywhere, but understand this. In simple terms, thanks to disruptions in the supply chain, global supply chain brought forward by Chinese actions, and how the world favorably looks towards India as a better, safer alternative to China, because of the lack of reforms, because of the lack of greater reforms, if I can say. There are reforms, but they are not happening at the pace that we need, right? So we are somewhere becoming unattractive, uncompetitive compared to other our surrounding countries. See, there is no doubt about it that India wants to become, or our primary economic ambition is to become the manufacturing hub of the world. Select any field, select any industry, any sector, whatever it may be, India wants to become the global leader in that sector or in that field. That is why we have brought in campaigns like Make in India, where we have been promoting multi-billion-dollar production-linked incentive schemes. We have been pushing hard to position ourselves as a major factory to the world. We are not only supplying uh, people in services industries, but we are also actually better placed to become the manufacturing hub or factory to the world. And there are some genuine successes that are in this whole Make in India and PLI incentives. The best case example is how we have totally turned around toy manufacturing, how we totally turned around AC manufacturing, right? For example, smartphones, how we have been uh, assembling electronics locally, how we have turned around our smartphone manufacturing, now recently semiconductor investments, how we have been consistently out investing and outperforming in renewable energy equipment, renewable energy as a source. And global brands are shifting towards India, or rather shifting parts of their production to Indian soil. Despite these gains, we still struggle to dominate large scale mass export manufacture in the way that China does. To the to an extent, Vietnam also does, but there are certain nuances to it. But let us compare to China alone. I'm limiting myself to China. It simply comes down to how actually the global trade works, right? We understand that products are rarely built entirely in a single ecosystem or a single country. Components come from various countries across various borders, and somewhere in one country all these parts that are being brought from different countries are brought into a single country, then they are assembled and the final product comes out. So that depends on various factors: how efficient our supply chain is, how seamlessly we are integrated into the global supply chain. These are the factors that turn a country into factories of the world, which China is. This is where India's protectionistic trade policies create a sharp contradiction, right? In an effort to protect our own domestic industries, we maintain some of the highest import tariffs among when you compare to other major economies. Uh, as I said, manufacturers often need to import specialized parts and components from abroad, and you place high import tariffs, these machines become far more expensive, subsequently increasing your manufacturing cost. And these high manufacturing costs, you cannot compete with the low manufacturing costs put out by the Chinese. So when we place high tariffs and strict import controls on these necessities in manufacturing, as I said, it increases the overall cost of production and makes our product uncompetitive and more expensive when compared to the Chinese. The quality is not an issue here. Quality comes somewhere third or fourth or fifth in the line of things that a business looks when they are sourcing their parts. Price is the top one, and we are uncompetitive in price when compared to China. Quality is somewhere fourth or fifth in line. So instead of opening up and directly integrating ourselves deeply into international production networks or supply chains, our policy choices, which focus heavily on import substitution, where we are trying to make everything domestically, yes, this strategy is helpful to develop our own uh, ecosystem, but um, it is also it has also become a roadblock in that, right? So that is one of the things, or whether it is intentional or not, I'm not sure, but through these actions we ourselves are making ourselves. Okay, let me repeat again. Through these policies, somewhere along the line we are becoming uncompetitive when compared to other countries, right? True manufacturing power, this isn't achieved by building high tariffs. These kinds of high tariffs keep the investments and the world out of reach. The other idea is it can be achieved by making domestic logistics so efficient, so reliable, and regulations so stable that India becomes indispensable to global makers. We have to compete with the Chinese. We have to be far more reliable than the Chinese. We are already are, but the policies are what making things difficult for our manufacturers. So when you look at these realities over the last, see, at the end of the day, we want to become the factory of the world, and that can be achieved only by bringing in rapid changes in our policy, in our bureaucracy, in our judiciary, and we have to somewhere let go of our protectionistic ideology Yes, you are protecting the domestic industry, but you are also starving the domestic industry from external investments. So I sincerely hope things change for better. So, and we see real GDP growth where our numbers are positive. Simultaneously, people are also getting the money, the wealth that they deserve. So if you want India to truly transform and actually utilize its massive potential into a sustainable multi-decade economic superpower, we have to make certain changes. First, India must build a highly predictable, investor friendly legal environment with faster commercial dispute resolution. And there has to be a complete stability in our tax laws. There has to be tax certainty. Second, the country must move away from this protectionism, and we have to dive head first into global supply chain. And we have to, while protecting our domestic market, we also have to somewhere find the balance and reduce our trade barriers. Third, India must prioritize employment intensive manufacturing and must attract large scale industries, simultaneously increasing skill development for young people. It has to go hand in hand. And finally, it must protect institutional credibility, ensuring that regulations do not change on the mood of the government. There has to be that protection also. We are at a very crucial crossroads where we can achieve far more greater things, and this country and its population can grow to greater heights because we have the scale, the talent, the strategic geopolitical position that we have maneuvered ourselves into, that will define India as a superpower. But this has to be backed by solid policy work. So, what do you think? Is India on the right path with its current economic strategies, or it is time for major course correction towards global openness? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Thank you for listening to this. I'll see you in the next deep dive. Have a great day. Namaste.